Major breaking news has come through as we head into the Hungarian Grand Prix, and that is that Mason Wood has been sacked by Red Bull. Red Bull have confirmed they have found Ford data files in his room. Now, Red Bull have confirmed that the suitcase which was exchanged between Wood and Noah James earlier on in the season was the exact same suitcase that was found in Wood's room. That consisted of data specifically directed for Ford with lots of vital information. Yuki Tsunoda is set to replace Mason Wood now for the rest of the season, starting to this weekend at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Now, what Red Bull have also confirmed is that Mason Wood actually called Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko for a meeting to confess that he had these Ford data files. Now, of course, we're still waiting for the investigation to complete with regards to who actually broke into Ford's team factory to actually take these data files. Now, Mason Wood may potentially have broken into that, but how was there no damage to any of the doors? There was only a set of paper on the floor, and the doors were fine. There was no damages, there was nothing there. So how could Mason Woods get into the Ford's factory without A, being noticed by somebody, and B, not causing any damages when he wouldn't have had access to any of the rooms? Nonetheless though, unfortunately for Mason Woods, his career in Formula 1 is over. In terms of the race news then for this weekend, it's Ferrari and Mercedes that lead the way in practice, which is a complete contrast to what we've seen throughout the majority of the season. Ferrari and Mercedes have tended to be just a little bit behind the top three teams of Audi, McLaren and Jaguar, but this weekend, Ferrari and Mercedes leap ahead of them. Jaguar were very far behind and they admitted to major car troubles this weekend. They weren't able to really find a good setup that worked with their car, and tyre temperatures was a big issue. But we know that this weekend, tyre temperatures is going to be critical for all of the teams, not just Jaguar. Lewis Hamilton is looking forward to taking the fight to the top four teams this weekend. He believes that Ferrari have now joined the top three teams and now forming the top four teams, whereas he thinks Mercedes are not there yet. Max Verstappen was pleased with the handling on his car into this weekend, but obviously Verstappen is still wary that the Red Bull is dreadful in a straight line, and Charles Leclerc admits that Audi are going to struggle in this Grand Prix, admitting that this could just be Audi's weakest circuit of this calendar year. But with that all being said and done, let's get straight into qualifying and the race. It's time for round number 9, the Hungarian Grand Prix. Hey, how's it going, guys? It is Foxydude here. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 journey for you guys today here on the channel. We're here for round number 9, I think this is now, of the season here for the Hungarian Grand Prix. If you guys haven't checked out last episode, be sure to go check that one out. Link is not down below, but you can check out the F1 Journey playlist, which is on my YouTube channel if you want to catch up with, well, every single F1 Journey video that we've ever done. But obviously, in the last episode, we had a fantastic result. We managed to go ahead and win the Singapore Grand Prix, which I was really, really happy about. And now we're here for the Hungarian Grand Prix, another track which should technically go into my favour, especially this track and also the Spanish Grand Prix next time around, where we've got a lot of traffic that we'll have to deal with and strategy, which definitely tends to play into the players' hands more than the AI, but we'll have to wait and see. But we're here for our flying lap here at the Hungarian. You see that we're just absolutely flying it around this middle sector here, using every inch of the circuit to our advantage now as we go towards the end of the middle sector, going purple now through the middle sector. We're currently in P3. I think I might have set a lap and then I'm going for another one, or I'm just no, I haven't actually set my lap yet. So we're going around the sector last corner now and getting the exit spot on. A little bit of oversteer on the rear end, but now as we go through the last corner here, just gently feathering the throttle and then across to the start-finish line now. It's a 1 minute 4.8 and it is a provisional pole position for us. And in fact, that lap was actually too good. I couldn't beat it on my second flying lap. I wasn't any faster, but we're still on pole. Here we go then, it is race day here for the Hungarian Grand Prix. It is round number 9, race number 99 now of the F1 journey as our 99th appearance in Formula 1. Just one more to go before we reach the magic 100. But in Budapest, it is a hot day, as you tend to expect around this circuit, which does mean that tyre temperatures are going to be even more crucial than they ever have been. This has been dubbed as Monaco without the barriers. It's very hard to find an overtaking spot. Your best shots are in turns 1
potentially on the run down towards turn 2, and if you're brave enough, you can hit one down into turn 4. It's the soft, medium, and the hard compound tyres, and all 3 of these tyre compounds will be critical. The top 10 have to start on the soft compound tyres, but the other drivers can start on those medium and hard tyres, which are more favourable around this circuit. Now, the safety car is quite prominent around here too, so we may see that have a little bit of an appearance, but we'll just have to wait and see. But let's have a look at the grid then and see where everybody is starting for today's Grand Prix. So we're on pole position, obviously, with Lewis Hamilton alongside us on the front row of the grid. Next up then, it is Max Verstappen with his best qualifying of the year so far for Red Bull, with George Russell in 4th place for Audi. Next to the 2 McLarens, it's Ricciardo ahead of Reese, 5th and 6th for them. Not too bad in qualifying. Charles Leclerc is in P7. Carlos Sainz, my teammate, is in 8th place. Next up then are the 2 Jaguar cars of Sam and Lando Norris, P9 and P10 on the grid. Not a great qualifying for them, and it's Valtteri Bottas that's got strategic pole position with P11. He can start whatever tyre he wants and can do a stop ahead of Pierre Gasly. Yuki Tsunoda, at his debut for Red Bull, starts 13th ahead of Nick de Vries in P14. Nico Hulkenberg is 15th ahead of Esteban Ocon, who's in 16th place. Sebastian Vettel, awful qualifying for him, down in 17th place. Sergio Perez is in 18th. And then the back row of the grid is Noah James, and then Pascal Wehrlein for Ford, and Porsche Martini Racing, and that is the grid for the Grand Prix.
So here we are then, we're on the grid here to start the Hungarian Grand Prix, and it's going to be a one-stop race, the soft to the hard compound tyres, or we could do soft, medium, medium. It completely depends, and I'm just going to work out the strategy as we go along. So here we go then, we're on the grid for 5 red lights here, and it's lights out, and away we go for the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's been a good start from us. Initially a slightly better start from Hamilton, but Verstappen from 3rd on the grid gets a great getaway, and he's up into 2nd place now as we go into the first corner, into the lead now at this Hungarian Grand Prix. Verstappen is in 2nd place, Lewis Hamilton is in 3rd, and the rest of the field will scrap away now as we go into turn 2, and as we always do, following on board for the entirety of the first lap as we get used to the car on race fuel, as the car's performance is just so much different to what it is in qualifying when there's literally no fuel in the car. And as you can see now, we're just trying to manage our way through here. Verstappen staying very close to us actually in the initial stages, already building a gap though to the driver in 4th place. It's one of the Audi cars that's gone up into 4th, but a little bit of a scrap then has gone on, and we've now got a little bit of a gap already between myself, Verstappen, Hamilton, and then the rest of the field, led by one of the Audi drivers as we go through the end of the middle sector. Breaking now in towards this next corner. We've gone a little bit too deep though. Verstappen capitalised on that. Max Verstappen leads the Hungarian Grand Prix. A mistake from us as we go in too deep on the brakes into the corner, and all of a sudden now the race has changed complexity as we round the final corner. It's Max Verstappen that leads the Hungarian Grand Prix. We're now down into 2nd place. The front left tyre is already beginning to overheat now in this stage of the race, but what would look like a potential brilliant opportunity for us has turned into a bit of a race dilemma. As we have a look at the race replay now off the start here, Verstappen gets a great getaway versus Lewis Hamilton, goes to the inside line and covers him off. It's one of the McLarens that was in front of the Audi initially. Before then, they actually had to deal with the scrap. But here it is on board with Verstappen here. It's a lovely getaway though, just much better drive than what Lewis Hamilton achieved, and straight away he is ahead, and he goes, like I said, to the inside line to cover it off, breaks nice and late into the first corner. Lewis Hamilton with absolutely no chance in that one. Now let's have a look at Daniel Ricciardo's starts here, because he was the man that was scrapping away here. So George Russell, I think this is just ahead, that he's side by side with now. So it's a good start actually from Ricciardo. Gets a nice getaway. Now he's attacking Russell as they go in towards turn 1 here, side by side. Russell now tries to come back at Ricciardo on the exit here, and he's done just that now. So Ricciardo at this point has lost the position, but he does then re-fight back against George, trying to make a move stick on the Britishman, but as you can see that as they go through turn 3, this is where they're losing time now compared to all of us here, and then Russell just flies around the outside of T4 and says thank you very much. Lap 4 of the Grand Prix now, and I'll be honest, it's actually been quite a struggle to stick with Verstappen, bar the fact that we have got the straight line speed to cope with it, as we're now going to try and go down the inside of Verstappen into turn 4. Max closes the door heavily, contact made between myself and Verstappen. Hamilton now capitalises on that. Some really hard fought poor racing there from Max Verstappen. Didn't really give us the room down the inside of turn 4 to try and go for it there. We've made contact. Lewis Hamilton says thank you very much, and he is now onto Verstappen. And as you can see, speaking of him being onto Verstappen, on the end of lap 4 now, Hamilton's going to go for it on Verstappen for the lead to the Hungarian Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton goes down the inside, Verstappen on the outside. Hamilton gets through on Max Verstappen. He leads the Hungarian Grand Prix, and a new complexity now in this Grand Prix. Lap 5 of this race now, and we're still on the back of Verstappen, back end sliding all over the place. Tyres starting to go off at this stage of the Grand Prix. I really need to get past Verstappen, but if it wasn't for the straight line speed that I have over Verstappen, we really probably wouldn't be able to keep up with him now. But here we can see with some DRS, we're going to go down the inside of Verstappen, but unfortunately for us, Verstappen goes in and does a switchback on us as we get the braking horribly wrong. Really struggling in this phase with the soft compound tyres, being a bit rash and a bit silly with my moves, but we get down the inside of Verstappen into turn 2, and all of a sudden Verstappen has to look behind him. He's lost out to George Russell, and I think he's lost out to Ricciardo as well. For me though, I'm going to box this lap and get off these soft compound tyres because I'm just not working with them in this stage of the race. On board here with what is now no longer Mason Woods, but it is Yuki Tsunoda. So we have a look here, and he's actually going through now past the Williams driver, or was trying to defend against not the Williams, it's a Porsche. I don't know why I've said that again. But as you can see then, it is Hulkenberg that he's trying to scrap away with. So he's being a little bit feisty here versus the Porsche driver in his debut race. Now he's under pressure here from the Aston Martin, and unfortunately, that's not quite worked out for him in the way that I think he would have wanted. On to the end of lap 6 now for us, and like I said, like we saw at the start of the lap here, we're now trying to do something different and do the undercut here and go onto the medium compound tyres. Now again, I could have pitted for the hard tyres if I did another lap longer. That was the original strategy, but to be honest, I'm just going to go for them two sits on the mediums. I think it'll just be better. We might suffer a little bit with tyre temperatures because obviously with this with the mods that I've made, if you're on these type of circuits like Hungary, Spain, even Silverstone to an extent, Japan is another one, those high-flowing corners, the softest compounded tyres tend to suffer more with tyre temperature problems, to the point where it's like uncontrollable. You'd have to literally drive like 3 seconds a lap slower or something like that. Silly. But as you can see then, lap 9 of the Grand Prix now, well, down in P14, but obviously a lot of drivers still yet to pit, and a lot of drivers trying to do that one-top strategy. We're now behind Lewis Hamilton, but we've caught up now to the Mercedes driver, who's under pressure here from a couple of drivers, or is trying to pass a few of the drivers, Verline and Noah James to be exact, but we're going to go down the inside here of Lewis Hamilton and nick that position and take a net P1 in this Hungarian Grand Prix, and we're through into 11th place now. Hamilton down into 12th, but crucially, you would have just seen then, as we overtook Lewis Hamilton, he's on the hard tyres. He's doing a one-stop in this Grand Prix. So Lewis Hamilton has gone a different way to what we were doing. Our original strategy was to one-stop, but we've switched it to a 2. And as you can see now, we get a lovely switchback line here on Pascal Wehrlein. That's fantastic drive out of the exit in the sector last corner. Use the grip of the fresh tyres around the final corner, and we're now up into P10 in this race. Next up the road is Noah James in the Ford driver, as Lewis Hamilton has to deal with the traffic. And that was my thought process throughout all of this, actually, was yes, I could do a one-stop, but why don't I just do an aggressive 2-stop as we just barge our way past the Ford of Noah. Down the inside we go, and double checking I didn't actually break anything, can be a plum sack in doing so, but we're fine. As you can see there, Wehrlein actually trying to go for it on Noah around the outside, and I think he actually might have made that one stick, you know. So fair play to him, but we've got a yellow flag now in the middle sector, so someone's going to be retiring from this Hungarian Grand Prix. Try and look at the mini-map there. I think that's one of the Audi cars that's out of this Grand Prix. That's a big shame for whoever that is. We'll get a replay in just a second's time. That's massive for that Audi in the championship. If it's Charles Leclerc, it's disaster. If it's not, it's technically all right. But it's George Russell then that is out of this Hungarian Grand Prix. So disaster there for George Russell, and his quite bad season really just gets even worse. Lap 13 of the Grand Prix, we're onto the back of Esteban Ocon, fighting our way through the traffic. Ocon doesn't really put up much of a fight here. Hamilton though, still stuck behind Noah James in the background there, so he's really struggling to pass this traffic. If he can't pass it soon enough and start putting in the laps, we might just be able to do a pit stop and get ahead of him in this Grand Prix, which would be a horrible feeling for Lewis Hamilton. This is what I'm on about here. Now all of a sudden he's got Reese and Ricciardo on the back of him as he's still trying to pass Noah here as he goes towards the outside now of turn 1. Let's see if he can try and make this move stick. He's also got the Audi there of Leclerc, my teammate Sainz, involved in this scrap as Hamilton then gets around the outside of Noah James. That's crucial that he made that stick. Now Reese actually fancies a run here down the inside into turn 2. Let's see if he can make that one stick. Yeah, he does. Fair play. Great overtake there. Now obviously we've now got... Oh no, was that Ricciardo that made that move stick? It was Ricciardo. Reese was the one that was behind all that. Reese goes around the outside of turn 4. Contact though with Noah James on his front wing then, and I wonder if that's put him under some pressure here, because all of a sudden now Reese here is going backwards in this Grand Prix. Leclerc now is going to try and go around the outside into turn 4. Leclerc gets around the outside into turn 4. Now my teammate Sainz is all over the back of Reese. I wonder if Reese has either A, got a mechanical issue, or B, he's got such light front wing damage, but it's costing him performance. Because now all of a sudden here comes Sainz now down the inside into turn 2. Reese now has definitely got a problem in this Grand Prix, and it's really hampering his overall performance. Sainz now gets to run through turn 3. Now towards turn 4 he had the inside line. Sam now is trying to go through down the inside in the Jaguar. Of course Jaguar a little bit further back in this Grand Prix compared to the rest of the competitors, but yeah, Sam goes around the outside now of Reese. Reese definitely suffering with a very, very big problem. Lando Norris now trying to go down the inside in towards the final sector here. Lando Norris makes that move stick. Reese continues his backwards trend. Now Verstappen is all of a sudden on the back of him here. Verstappen, remember, was leading this Hungarian Grand Prix. Now all of a sudden, it's just nowhere in this Grand Prix. Lap 21 of the Grand Prix, though, for us. We're coming in for our second stop of the Grand Prix. And as you can see, we are now coming in and yeah, getting a fresh set of medium compound tyres on. Now, of course, you can see on the minimap there, just before we came into the pits, we've actually built up a very good gap over the over Lewis Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo. It's not going to be enough. There is Lewis Hamilton. There is Daniel Ricciardo. They both go through and take first and second in this Grand Prix, but we now have fresh medium compound tyres versus their worn hard tyres, so we'll have a very, very big pace advantage, but we have to get the gap closed down. We can see that we've managed to rejoin just in front of Reese and Verstappen there, so Reese won't be an issue for us, but we've got to pass a lot of cars now if we want to win the Hungarian Grand Prix. But let's get straight on with it then. Lap 22 of the Grand Prix. Battle for P6 now. Myself versus Lando Norris. DRS open. Using Rich Mixture and Overtake now on the pit straight here. We're going to have to go bold on the brakes into turn 1. And that's exactly what we'll do. Down the inside on Lando Norris. And with the fresher compounded tyres, we can brake later. Get the traction on exit. That's one car down. We've still got 5 to go. That is Sam, Sainz, Leclerc, Ricciardo and Hamilton. In fact, Ricciardo is right on the back of Lewis Hamilton here. So this might be interesting for this Grand Prix as we go purple in the first sector. Didn't quite beat our fastest middle sector, but for us though, we're now trying to attack Sam here. Going to go for the outside line into the sector last corner, switch that back, get a fantastic drive off the exit there. Now round to the final corner we go, and as you can see, just feathering the throttle now on the start finish straight, but we're going to get ahead of Sam, use the slipstream from Sainz in front, and we're up into 5th place. We've got a yellow flag round the final corner, so that's a little bit of a problem for us now as we open up the DRS and get back going once again now. And oh, we've got a virtual safety car then that's come out. Unfortunately, not a full safety car, which I would have loved, but it is the VSC. So unfortunately, the driver in question was Nick de Vries. There he is, pulling over to the side of the circuit, and he is out of the Hungarian Grand Prix. So shame for Nick de Vries, but it is what it is. Next up now is Carlos Sainz, and once again, I'm trying to be careful with this overtake here. Obviously, I want to pass Sainz. I have to pass Sainz. What I don't want to happen as we now get onto the back of Sainz here is for the 2 Jaguar drivers behind to get in and attack and overtake Sainz. So as we go now round the outside of turn 1, we can brake later, we can swoop around the outside of Sainz, and we are through. Sainz maintains position over the 2 Jaguar cars. Let's hope now he can defend against both of them. Maybe one of them, I'm not sure yet, but as you can see then, 26 laps in, we've just set the fastest lap of the race on a 1:07.2 onto the back of Charles Leclerc now in the Audi here, using all of my ERS. I'm saving it quite nicely, in fact, with the new battery improvements that every car has had this season. It's been much easier to recover some ERS. We get a great run out of turn 3. Now towards turn 4 here, we're going to have to go to the outside of turn 4, and do you know what? We've made it stick there around the outside of turn 4. That's become a popular overtaking spot with these cars. You're able to just swoop around the outside of turn 4 onto lap 31 now. Our championship rival Daniel Ricciardo is in sight. He's lost track of Hamilton. Hamilton's pulled away now in this Grand Prix, so it's crucial now that we get past Ricciardo very, very quickly, because Hamilton's built a gap now in this race. There he goes. Now to lap 32 of this Grand Prix. You can see that Hamilton is probably about maybe 2 seconds clear, maybe 2.5. So we really want to pass Ricciardo ASAP, but I'm just about trying to find the correct place. Open at the DRS now for the second time here. We get a great run in towards turn 2. Will we dive it down the inside? Not quite here. Going to go for the outside line, swap it for the inside then to try and get a better line now through turn 3. And once again, we're going to try this move at turn 4. We'll have a little look as we did last time. Round the outside of turn 4, we go a little bit wide though into turn 4, losing out to Daniel Ricciardo, but on the inside, we'll hold it against Daniel Ricciardo, and that is second place in the bag. Next up the road is Lewis Hamilton, but we're running out of laps to get this one done. Lap 33 of this Grand Prix. We're still pressing on Lewis Hamilton, giving it everything we've got now in towards this middle sector. That we go as we put on the power. We put on too much power. We've gone into the barriers, and that is a front wing broken. And with just 2 more laps to go, we have ruined our chances of winning the Hungarian Grand Prix. We've thrown it all away so late in the Grand Prix, and our front wing is gone, and that is race done. We're not even going to score any points in this Grand Prix. We've got to box for a new front wing, and unfortunately for me, we're down in P7. Reese is now coming onto the back of us here, and that is absolute disaster in this Grand Prix. You can see here that we're trying to just get our way through. Vettel loses out to one of the Porsche drivers as I'm trying to navigate all these cars that want to get past me and just get into the pits, but unfortunately, we're down in P15, and that is it. That is race over. We gave it too much, and unfortunately the back end just didn't live with what we were doing, and yeah, that is it. Game over. We're going to box for soft compound tyres, and the only thing we can do is get a fastest lap on the last lap. That's literally all I can do now as we change our front wing, get onto the soft compound tyres, and unfortunately for me, that does mean that Lewis Hamilton is relieved of my attack on him, and there's nothing I can do about it. So as we now exit the pits here, GG's. Game over. Yeah, we're going to have a look at a replay though in just a second here of what happened, and pretty much showcase it. So as we go on, as you can see there, just looking at that replay, we didn't get onto the grass, we didn't have any mud on our tyres, we just simply pushed hard on the exit, and the car just didn't live with us, what we were trying to do. Nevertheless though, it has been a long time coming for Mercedes-Benz. Lewis Hamilton wins the Hungarian Grand Prix. For us, we just have to live and learn and not make those mistakes again. This championship has been so difficult this season, and that would have been a brilliant way to try and solidify ourselves at the top of the championship. We would have extended our championship lead, but it's not to be. Lewis Hamilton gets his first win for the new Mercedes-AMG Vestas. They win the Hungarian Grand Prix today. Lewis Hamilton with 25 points. Daniel Ricciardo finishes in second place for McLaren, 4.7, pretty much 5 seconds behind Hamilton in the end. Charles Leclerc takes his podium for Audi thanks to us crashing out late on. He finished about 10 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Carlos Sainz finishes in P4 for Ferrari. I think that's my teammate Sainz's best performance so far for Ferrari in terms of race finish. I'm not quite sure. He did manage to hold off the 2 Jaguars of Sam and Lando Norris, so fair play to him on that one. Reese, with whatever issues that he was having, finished in 7th ahead of Max Verstappen in P8. He'll be absolutely devastated by that, considering he was leading the Hungarian Grand Prix and then dropped to third, or dropped about 3rd or 4th, but still, bad race for him today. Pierre Gasly picks up 8 points for Ford in P9, and Hulkenberg inherits P10 thanks to me not being in the top 10. We can see that we set the fastest lap of the race of 105.1. That was actually only 3/10 slower than my pole lap in this race, but oh well, it didn't really result to anything. In terms of the bottom half of the table, Sebastian Vettel finishes in 11th for Mercedes. Valtteri Bottas is P12 for Renault. Sergio Perez is in 13th place for Aston Martin. Yuki Tsunoda on his debut for Red Bull finishes in 14th place. Pascal Wehrlein is in 15th after that. Noah James in 16th for Ford. Esteban Ocon finishes in 17th place for Renault. We end up last of the classified runners in 18th place, and then Russell and Nick De Vries were the 2 drivers that DNF'd from today's race, and obviously, like I said, we achieved fastest lap, which is not great. Now looking at the Drivers' Championship, that does mean that Daniel Ricciardo retakes the lead of the Drivers' Championship. He is now on 132 points, and he re-overtakes us who we still are on 124 points. Of course, just before this race began, Daniel Ricciardo's on 114 points. We were on 124. We had a 10-point lead. We no longer have a 10-point lead. We're now 8 points back from Ricciardo. So once again, the championship swings in Ricciardo's favour. Charles Leclerc is third for Audi. He's on 116 points, ahead of Reese, who is fourth on 110, and then it is Sam on 105. It is still a 5-horse race in the Drivers' Championship as we are at the halfway stage of this season, with Sam being only 27 points back from Daniel Ricciardo. Lando Norris then is in 6th place on 69 points. He is only tied with Lewis Hamilton on 69 points. I think Lando Norris, in terms of countback, has had more podiums than Lewis Hamilton, both of them picking up 1 race win each. George Russell, 8th in the championship with 52 points. Max Verstappen, 9th in the championship on 33 points. Sebastian Vettel is 10th in the championship on 28 points. Looking then at the Constructors' Championship now, McLaren are on 242 points, ahead of Jaguar who are on 174 points, Audi are 168, Ferrari are on 149 points, Mercedes get close to the 100-point barrier, they're on 97 points, Red Bull are on 37 points, Ford move ahead of Renault now on 20 points compared to Ford's 19, Porsche get themselves 8 points, or they gained a point, so they're now on 8, and Aston Martin remain on 2 points in this race. But that is it for this Hungarian Grand Prix. Next time around, it's going to be the Spanish Grand Prix, but for now, let's go and have a look at the post-race notebook and get our reaction from the teams and the drivers. Mercedes are back on top in Formula 1 as Lewis Hamilton wins the Hungarian Grand Prix, but it was a costly crash from Tom with just 2 laps to go that allowed Daniel Ricciardo to inherit P2 and Charles Leclerc to snatch P3 and get himself onto the podium. Sebastian Vettel was left frustrated with Tom after Tom's slow car cost him points. As Tom was trundling back to the pit lane to get a new front wing, Tom was trying to avoid all of the traffic while keeping his car on circuit. The costly timing of when Vettel caught up to Tom meant that Hülkenberg managed to overtake him, snatching the final point away from him, which really angered Sebastian Vettel. Lewis Hamilton is over the moon to be back on top with Mercedes-Benz as they claim victory at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Hamilton admits that there's still a long way to go for them to try and take the fight to the teams in front of them, but believe that they can do all they can this season to try and help with that. And obviously with the regulation change next season, it should be a good time for Mercedes to really focus on that. Tom admits that he pushed too hard, which obviously caused a costly error from him today. Tom admits that whilst he was pushing as hard as he could to try and catch up to Lewis Hamilton, he didn't really take any notice of the rear tyre temperatures, and as they got really hot, he tried too much and unfortunately it cost him and he went over the limits of the car. Tom admits that he needs to do more in terms of controlling himself when he's out in front, as he's had a few pole positions now and they have not gone to plan. Some shocking news has just come out of Red Bull post-race. Max Verstappen has just left Red Bull Racing. Verstappen has just stated that he has had enough with Red Bull and he has had enough with BMW, Red Bull's engine supplier. We know that the tension has been building throughout the entirety of the season with Red Bull and BMW having slight issues. BMW have not had a good enough power unit for Red Bull Racing, and it has left Red Bull pretty much as a backmarket team, bar some of the races which we saw in Singapore and for an extent here at the Hungarian Grand Prix. But Verstappen has stated he has now just had enough and there has been too much disagreement with himself, Red Bull and BMW, and he has decided enough is enough and he has gone. Red Bull have stated that they are now trying to work on finding a new driver to help lead the team for the rest of the season. Of course, Red Bull have literally just brought in a new driver in Yuki Tsunoda for a separate incident in which Mason Wood was sacked for stealing Ford data files. Now all of a sudden they've got to find a replacement for Max Verstappen, as they are shocked and disappointed in Max Verstappen's decision. Verstappen has stated that he is fed up with Red Bull, he is fed up with BMW, and he is fed up with no progress being made, and he feels like there is nothing left for him to do at this team bar leave That's what he has done. So some absolutely shocking news for Red Bull throughout the entirety of this episode. Next time around, we're now going to have to find out who Red Bull are going to sign and what will happen with Mason Wood moving forward. Will he be banned from Formula 1? We're not sure, but this is absolutely mental stuff. Stay tuned next week for the Spanish Grand Prix, where we find out who Red Bull will find as their second driver.